Welcome into the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. This is our final episode of the regular team season in District 3 as we get geared up for the District 3 team championships. They start next Monday, the 30th. So we're approaching that cutoff date on Saturday, the 29th, for competitions to count towards the District 3 ratings formula. Dave Heckard's here. I'm Dustin Hawkinsmith. What we're doing on this episode is we're going through Dave's top 5 teams in District 3 in both AA for starters and then AAA. Dave, welcome back. And let me be the first to offer you, we talked about this a little bit, thoughts, prayers, condolences for you and your family through the passing of your father last week. I know it's a tough time, but I know you mentioned too, the wrestling community that you and your dad have been part of for so long has stepped up big, and that's not surprising to me in any way.
No, yeah, I appreciate the shout out, the condolences there. Man, a day. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the time to reach out and thank the wrestling community. The just the outpour of messages and phone calls. I mean, I've heard from kids that I've wrestled when I was like 10 years old as like a youth wrestler that remember my father and all that. And the best part about the wrestling community is when they reach out, a lot of times it involves food. So the amount of food that has been delivered to my parents' house and my house is incredible. I mean, the whole Save clan delivered a sharing of chicken, and I feel like there's a poultry farmer somewhere that just retired because a chicken that was sent to my family. So the food is good. But no, I think even wrestling is family in some sense. You look at good good wrestlers, good programs. I mean, even anybody who wrestles, that family atmosphere where is such an integral part of wrestling because there's so many ups and downs, right? So that being said, it doesn't shock me that I got the amount of support that I did from different coaches and other teams, and it's just absolutely incredible. And it makes you feel good about the world when you see the amount of people sharing their thoughts and condolences and sending that love. But just like many wrestlers, man, I think the importance of like a male role model in the sport of wrestling. Like, you talk to a lot of wrestlers and somewhere along the way, like a male role model has stepped up, and whether that be a coach, whether that be an older brother or sibling, whether that be, a father. And in my sake, it was my father, and, heck, I was at, the old Hershey Park Arena eating chicken fingers and fries as a kid, watching the state tournament next to my dad, watching, the old school wrestlers like Colad and Joey Wildison and Ty Moore and pointing those guys out as kids. And as far as wrestling is concerned, man, I'll never forget that, those times and just a lot of good memories with my dad in the sport of wrestling. And he was a great man, a great father, and, someone we're going to definitely miss, man. And, I think through all this, though, the one thing that I feel like that is re-emphasized to me is the element of time, and one of those deals where, you go through life and you just think you have time and you're going to have time to do this. And, in different instances, like it was a kid, well, in wrestling, like I have time to do, no, you don't have time. Like, the time is now. And I think, whenever you go through something like this, that's just reiterated, and yeah. So, cherish the time you have with your loved ones, cherish the time, you have with your family, and just don't take time for granted, man. It is so precious, so precious.
It's one of the silver linings of a difficult situation is that you do get that lesson. Sometimes you need something challenging for you to, really relearn that lesson and appreciate people, appreciate time. So that's one of the good things I think you can pull from a hardship. So
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
but there, if there's one thing, wrestlers and wrestling people can respect and get behind, it's a shared difficult emotional journey. Like that's what the sport is. So when you're going through that in life, I just think there's something that the wrestling community responds to stuff like this in a way that, no putting down other sports, but in a way that other sports probably do not.
I couldn't have put it any better. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and that's what I mean with the people reaching out and the wrestling community and the family there. It's just absolutely awesome. I mean, college coaches reaching out. College coaches that I know, or that maybe recruited kids that that went to their schools when I was coaching, and coaches from all around the area. I mean, you think of a school in the Mid-Penn, and there isn't too many coaches that didn't at least drop me a line and offer their condolences. And you battle with these teams and you compete against these guys, but we're all cut from the same mold, and I appreciate it, and I know my family does too. So.
Well, let's dive into what we're looking at here in the District 3 team race. And this takes on some new meaning this week because you are going to get to the final 12 in AA. You're going to get to the final 16 here in AAA. The timeline usually goes as follows. They compete most of the time early on Saturday. Westbury, Boiling Springs, one of the matches. I think, to me, the match I was most looking forward to from day one is happening the final day of the regular dual season. So this is coming up on Saturday, but they're wrestling at noon, and you have this cutoff. Usually you will get an unofficial listing of who the top 12 are in AA and who the top 16 are in AAA Saturday nights. And then we'll get the District 3 team brackets on Sunday. And then it is off to the races with the start of the tournament on Monday. So let's start in AA with your team number 5 in the Dave Heckard power rankings. Let's throw out the formula for a second. The only formula going on here is in your head. Number 5, you got Camp Hill in this spot. And I think, there's a number of teams that could be vying for this. And I think that makes that, as you're looking at the final kind of seedings, and they won't be seeded how we view them, but you look at this pocket of teams, that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 range. There are some pretty sneaky teams in there that, a couple of them, you're going to have some of these top teams not really looking forward to wrestling early in the district tournament.
Right. When I was making my list here, I put Camp Hill at 5, and I wrote down kind of others to watch there, and, kind of in that mix for that top 5 spot. And I had Biglerville, Newport, and Upper Dolphin. And I know Upper Dolphin had beat Camp Hill, a little earlier in the year, but I just have them slotted at number 5. I like Camp Hill. I think, they have enough star power. But like that, like Camp Hill, a lot of teams, you're a bad matchup away from not getting it done. But I do have them at the number 5. So.
They've got a good win on their resume, 54-24, one of the more surprising results here of the past couple of weeks. They've got a loss on their resume to Upper Dolphin. They fought Bishop Mcdevitt pretty hard. 44-30 was the final score of that Mcdevitt match. You've got some quality young kids, a couple of sophomores, guys like Marcus Colson, Kobe Moore, and Chad Gallagher is incredibly high on Noah Doy, their freshman, who's at 126, the younger brother of Christian Doy, who's a 2-time state qualifier. Noah Doy, he said at the same time of his career, like right now, he's working and competing like a senior. And I don't know if there's a better compliment that you can pay a freshman kid, especially one with some ability like Noah Doy has. So as we're looking at this Camp Hill team, I think you'll get a chance to see them wrestle in some higher profile duels here. And you'll get a chance to see a guy like Noah Doy maybe announce his presence to the District 3 world. So that's one guy I would watch very, very closely as we go into the team postseason. Somebody who can kind of step up and be a really good wrestler for them.
Yeah, he's got a sense of maturity about him for a freshman, and I would agree with that. And when you have that sense of maturity as a young wrestler, you're going to do things at a quicker rate, than most of the guys that age, where that experience and maturity will definitely help him and help him win out. And again, like I said, Biglerville, Newport, Upper Dolphin, all in that mix at that 5 spot.
Looking at number 4, Northern Lebanon. This is a team that's 12-1 against Pennsylvania teams. They wrestled down at the Virginia Duels last week. They wrestled at King of the Mountain. They wrestled at Hurricane Classic. You see a bunch of kids in this lineup with 8 or 9 losses. Good quality kids with 8 or 9 losses. So we talked before about exposing your kids to the opportunity to lose. Without question, Northern Lebanon has done that. their resume, they beat, and when I list rankings here, they're according to the district power rating. So number 10, Brandywine Heights, they beat them 57-15. Number 11, Elko. Number 13, Lancaster Catholic. Number 14, Bermudian Springs. All pretty handy wins, looking at 30 plus points each for Northern Lem. So without question, this is the first team outside of what I would call the big three. They've got a good group of kind of tough, grinding kids. Not a ton of big time star power, but there's a lot of guys who have a lot of experience. And then they've got, maybe the best 106 in the state in freshman Aaron Seidel.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Seidel kid. I mean, he's shown, week in and week out, he can compete at any level. I think Northern Lebanon, from a ballot standpoint, maybe has a little bit more of that going on. Maybe some depth in other spots that will help them out in the end. But I do feel that there is a pretty big gap between the top three and the 4 and the 5. And that's not to say. I mean, here's the deal. With things the way they are this year, you don't know what you're getting week in and week out. So, could Northern Lebanon, step in and knock one of those teams off? I mean, yeah, absolutely. But I feel like if we're talking, proposed lineups and full lineups, I feel like there is a pretty good gap there for Northern Lebanon to jump to pull into that number 3 spot, in my opinion.
And here's an interesting thing with the district postseason. So in both AA and AAA, you're in position. So in AAA, it's the first round and the quarterfinals. You wrestle 2 matches the same night. In AA, you're looking at the quarterfinals and the semifinals as being the same night at the same place. So teams with some depth, when you're having the one weigh-in for 2 matches, it's an interesting component of this because you have a little bit of maneuverability there. If you like a matchup in the first duel and want to kind of keep a second matchup for the second duel in mind, you have maybe some pieces to shuffle around and optimize your lineup, because it's difficult to do, right? Like, it's difficult to, if you want to bump a kid for the first match, then you're stuck at that spot for the second match too.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of, it's funny you say that. That happened to us a few years ago. We wrestled Gettysburg in the semifinal match, and it was, I mean, we were in the match, and if we would have lost, I think we would have grabbed Chambersburg, and the weigh-in that we needed was not gonna. I mean, if we didn't win that match, it was going to hurt because of the way we weighed in, because we had to weigh in a certain way to try to beat Gettysburg. And my coaches kind of said, you definitely want to go this route. And I said, yeah, we're here to win. I'm not going to set a lineup for a loss. I mean, we're going to go after it. And it did end up hurting us, where I think we actually lost in criteria, you know what I mean? So that can happen. And I mean, that's where that depth factor, like you said, comes in. But people need to understand that, like, when you wrestle 2 matches, you're definitely weighing in to win that first match most of the time, right? Unless you really feel you have a clean cut, decisive win. If it's close at all, you got to try to set your lineup for that first match. And that might not be the lineup you want to set it for, how you want to set it for match 2. So, but that being said, the teams with more depth and the teams that, have those other guys are definitely benefiting more in that situation. So.
Well, let's look at number 3, and really there's a big gap, I think, from 3 to 4. You and I both agree on that. And there's not a lot of gap between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. So you can take these final 3, I think, in any order and rearrange them. The current number 1 in the district power ratings, though there is a fairly good chance, I think, that changes. Bishop Mcdevitt is your number 3. They're sitting there at 7-0. They're due to wrestle at Milton Hershey, I believe, on Wednesday. They should be wrapping up the Capital Division if they win that match. As things stand now, and Mike Nauman thinks that this has a chance to change, but they're without a 106 pounder, and they have not had Gabe Bertoldi at 138, which kind of changes the dynamic from what a lot of people might have expected at the beginning to where they are now. But this is still a team that when you go from 145 to 285, not overstating it, you can't find many better stretches from 145 to 285 than what Mcdevitt has. And so what they're looking to do is kind of tread water in some of those spots down low. They're looking to fight and avoid bonus in some of those spots. And I think they've got a couple game competitors there who might be able to do the job. But, the issue is you're looking at teams, West Perry and Boiling Springs, that are strong down low and that aren't just giving away bonus points from 145 up. So it's an interesting dynamic with Mcdevitt and these other 2 teams in the top 3.
Definitely the most star power, the most star power in Double A is Mcdevitt for sure. And like I said, you start forfeiting that 106, and I mean that hurts, man. And hopefully they do have a fill for that. But that's exactly why I had a minute 3 there. As much star power as they had, are they going to be able to put it all together and hold off like a Boiling Springs or a West Perry? And maybe they will. I don't know. I mean, that's I think that, like you said, there's not a lot of difference between the top 3 in my opinion. And could Mcdevitt hold off a West Perry? Sure. Boiling Springs possibly, but I think the little bit of their downfall is the fact that they are, giving up a little bit there in the lightweights. So see how that plays out for them. And really, like, the power rankings are what they are. There's no human element. So, Boiling or Mcdevitt could be the number 1 team in the power rankings, and depending on what happened in that Boiling Springs West Perry match, they, who knows who's going to fall on what side of the bracket, even, how that's going to play out, and that can matter. So,
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see here this weekend heading in once those are solidified, how everybody falls.
Just a note as far as that goes, the 1 and the 2 seed are hosts for quarterfinals and semifinals in Double A. So, beyond that, usually the way things are seeded, obviously the higher seed you are, the better. That's not necessarily so in the power rating situation where, you could be looking at the 4 seeds better than the 3 seed, or the 8
Right.
seeds better than the 5 seed. So sometimes it's just kind of luck of the draw how it goes. But Mcdevitt has 1 match to go. Boiling Springs, and we'll touch on them in a moment. They wrestle Shippensburg tonight, Monday. That's a match that was postponed from earlier. They're due to wrestle Bermudian on Wednesday, who's I think at 14 going into the week, and they wrestle West Perry at home on Saturday. So if they sweep, there's not a big gap statistically between Mcdevitt and Boiling Springs. If they sweep, I would expect them to be the number 1 team in District 3.
Yeah, I would agree. They jump there, make that jump to 1, which, I mean, that's my number 1 team. You know what I mean? So that would be, it makes sense. But I again, between Boiling Springs and West Perry, I'm excited for that match Saturday too. See how that comes down, and I'm going to head out, on Saturday afternoon and check that one out myself. So, yeah, and then West Perry too. I did notice in West Perry's lineup there a little bit. They dropped a couple duels. They dropped the Bald Eagle, and then I think the Selinsgrove without Devin Jackson. Hopefully they get that whole thing squared away and get him back in the lineup and get healthy. But that could really even things out if some guys like that aren't able to wrestle for them. As far as the district plays out. But I definitely clear cut. I mean, Boiling Springs is my number 1 for sure. I think they just have enough balance, enough star power from top to bottom. They spread out well, and they compete well. So I think they'll be ready to go. And that's my favorite if I was a betting man.
So West Perry, they're 12-3. I think they're as tested as anybody in District 3.
True.
When it comes to the duels that they've wrestled, when it comes to being at Trojan Wars, they have been highly active. And it's always that kind of fine line of getting guys prepared and still making sure that physically they're still there. And it looks like, with Devin Jackson, they do expect him to be back. As far as last I heard, for Saturday, but certainly for the district tournament, I still think they like their chances there. They probably beat Selinsgrove. That was a 36-34 match. They lost to them. And Bald Eagle area was 35-31. Devin Jackson wrestles. They probably win both of those duels just for whatever that's worth. Some good wins on their resume. And then Boiling Springs, just this past weekend, a pretty revealing weekend as we're talking about 1 through 5, because as they beat Northern Lebanon 46-18, they beat Susquehanna 59-9. You're looking at a team, they lost to Saucon Valley 46-21 in the finals. That's at Northern Lebanon's Berserker Duels. So they're 12-1. That only loss is to Saucon Valley, who was number 2 in the state going into that. They're busy this week, got a shot to move up to that number 1. I think they're right there in terms of having the fewest holes in their lineup. And I think they also maybe have a little bit of star power that they can go toe to toe with West Perry with their depth. They can go toe to toe with Mcdevitt with their star power. I think they've got a little bit of everything. And I would agree with you right now that Boiling Springs, the top in District 3, but small razor thin margins, 1-2, 2-3.
Yeah, nothing would surprise me there between those three. Nothing would surprise me. So that'll be exciting here coming up. I'm excited. I always get it's a fun time of year, and with the team season coming up, and it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Let's pivot to AAA here while we're going 5 through 1, and then in the 5 spot in your rankings. And again, I think really from 3 on, I could be talked into a lot of different things from 3 on. And we'll get to those teams later, but you got Cumberland Valley at 5. It's a team that's 12-3, 6 out of the last 7 they won. I'm sorry. The only loss in that stretch was a tight one to Dallastown, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. They've got, as of right now, Spring Grove on Tuesday, Mifflin County on Thursday, State College on Saturday, from what I've seen. What that stretch ends up doing to their power rating could be interesting to watch. I think they came into the week at number 7 in the District 3 power rating.
Yeah, it was like
formula.
6 or 7. Yeah, you're right.
But nobody, if let's just say that they lose 2 out of 3 this week. Let's just say that.
Right.
Nobody wants to see this team as a 10. Nobody wants to see this Cumberland Valley team as a 10 seed.
No, especially if they get everything going here, which has like been the MO all year. I think you know that they're battle tested, right? Like, I mean, the teams that they wrestle. So, I mean, they're not intimidated of any team in the district. I know that for a fact. It's just, can they get everything going? Can they keep it together here at the end? And, they wrestled a really close duel with Dallastown. I mean, I think the last couple times, other than last year, I mean, the last 4 or 5 times we wrestled them, I mean, it's been tight matches and been like in the high 20s, like, 29, 27, 28, 26, like, just great dual meets. And I know that
so refreshing in this day and age of there's a lot of 65-6s out there. It's really nice to see no team get to 30.
Yeah, I mean, that's always like the goal for me as a coach. Like, how am I getting to 30? How do I get in a good match? And that was another good dual meet. I talked to Billy after it, and he just obviously frustrated when you lose, but just and Dallastown is a class team too. I mean, Dave Gable's just a great guy, and you get their best effort, no shenanigans, and they wrestle hard. And then that's my number 4 team, Dallastown.
Yeah. And it's a good number 4. They're sitting here at 15-1. They've got, the strength of beating a good Cumberland Valley team. Their only loss was the Faith Christian Academy, which they brought in. They had some new kids arrive there, and it's a strong team in AA. We'll see, AA teams from District 3 will be going, and they'll see them at the Southeast Regional before the state tournament. So, but one thing you mentioned, Dave Gable, really good guy. Also a tendency to get exponentially better from the start of the season to the end of the season. Dallastown, if you look at their early season results, sometimes this season, not so much, but you look at their early season results, sometimes you can tend to underestimate them a little bit, but they show up to wrestle in this district team championship format. They show up to wrestle in duels. They have a good sense of wrestling for each other. They have a good sense of doing what is asked of you when it comes to preventing bonus and stuff like that. This is a team, you're going to have to beat them. And,
right.
You could make a case, like if somebody said, I think Dallastown is the best team in District 3, I would absolutely listen to that argument. I don't think there's much difference here between your 1 and your 4. We've got kind of a consensus at 1 and 2, Hempfield and Gettysburg, that has been that way all season long. But Dallastown is a tough team, and just like Gettysburg, you have to go and take a win from them. They aren't going to give you anything.
Yeah. I mean, good balance. I just like everything about Dallastown. From top to bottom, they're balanced, and there's not a lot of holes, and they're well coached, and good kids, and all the above, man. They're and like you said, even you say the top 4. I mean, even the top 5, I feel like could really even rounding out the other teams, I had like Carlisle, Spring Grove, Manheim Township. I mean, here's 3 other teams that, could we're going to see Cumberland Valley and Spring Grove this week, that are going to get in there and test that 5 spot. So, a lot of parity here as far as I'm concerned, as far as the top 5 teams,
Yeah, if ever there were a year for a team to come off the radar a little bit, this would be the year. I was for Dallastown, 7 kids with 20 plus wins so far. And
Wow.
one guy that, that struck me was you could account for the Caden Dobbins and, their heavyweight, they have some pretty known commodities there. A kid named Damian Key, a junior who hadn't wrestled varsity before, wrestling 120 pounds. He's 20-7. He beat Jake Mitchell, Cumberland Valley's freshman, 3-2 in their duel. And you look at the final outcome, 29-27. That's a huge toss-up match that they won. That's a kid that I wasn't really accounting for so much at the start of the year.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned him. When I talked to those guys after that match, they both mentioned that kid and how like he was kind of impressive. You know what I mean? A guy that, really battled Jake and wrestled tough, and a guy that kind of, like you said, came out of nowhere a little bit. So that's good to see, though. That's good for the sport, and there'll be a team that's in the hunt here come team districts for sure. So
absolutely. Your number 3 spot, Central Dolphin, you just have to include them in the top 5 somewhere. You just have to. They're 8-1. They've won 7 in a row since they lost to Mifflin County early in the year. They had, a little 7-day stretch there where they were shut down. That duel to State College, 46-20. State College is one of the most unpredictable teams in the Mid-Penn any division. I don't know what version. I don't know what version's showing up, but when they're at their best, that's what you get. Whenever Central Dolphin beat them 46-20, but at their best, I think they can wrestle with anybody. They were down a guy or two, I think, for that match, but either way, for Central Dolphin to come out of their lockdown and wrestle State College essentially on day 1. That was an impressive win given all the other non-wrestling circumstances around it. So a good little flex there from Central Dolphin. They've also got that 26-23 win over Cumberland Valley for the first full week of the dual season. Really, they see each other, which was tough for CV. Beat Boyertown in a good win there. Berks Catholic, who's in the top 3 in AA. CD beat them 51-9. They're good at 106. They're good at 285. They've got their studs in there. They've got a couple guys who have been a little bit better than expected. I mean, it's not Jeff Swaggard's best team of all time, but they are fighting for everything and they're getting better and they're handling all this different type of adversity that's been thrown their way.
The one thing to understand here is with Central Dolphin is your consistency with their coach, right? Like Jeff is a guy that's been there forever. So guess what? He knows exactly what it takes to be successful here at the end of the year and have his guys ready and what it takes really to win and move on in the tournament. And that's why they moved up in my 3 spot. I mean, say what you want. They have enough star power. They have reposts and through the middle there, and Garvik up top at 60, and the Beers kid and the kid down below at 106 that wrestles tough for them. Still at heavyweight, gets the job done a lot. So they do spread out well. They do have a couple holes in the upper weight that could hurt them in a big match, depending on who they wrestle. But, I say that, but man, they cover up so well everywhere else. And, that experience that Jeff brings to the table is sometimes unsurmountable, and they're going to be there, I think. And there's going to be a tough out, and especially if you get them at home, which a lot of times can happen. And right now, I think they are sitting at number 3. Am I right? That maybe in the power rankings, even number 3. And I think I looked before, we're like Cumberland Valley was 6, and this might have been a little bit ago. And one thing that we always joked about was at Cumberland Valley, like, we're going to wrestle them in playoffs because it's the wrestling gods. Like, they make that matchup happen. So I guarantee you at some point, like, those 2 teams will hit early on or somewhere in that tournament. But they're going to be a tough out. And like you said, nothing would surprise me with them. Do I see them beating Hempfield? Man, I don't know. But you better come ready to wrestle if you're going to wrestle Central Dolphin.
One of the things that stood out to me about CD and probably 2 team postseasons in a row, but especially last season, they wrestled their way to the team finals, PIAA team finals, where they lost to Waynesburg, one of the best teams probably in the history of the PIAA team wrestling championships.
Right.
But when they beat Bethlehem Catholic, they did that at home. Fans were back in the gym for really the first time all season. But what struck me was the weirdness of that and having the individual tournament come first and then the team tournament and guys who have been eliminated. They had, CD had a few guys, key components, who were eliminated at the sectional level because they only took 2 to districts from each section. But the level of buy-in from everybody is what won them that duel against Bethlehem Catholic. They were more bought into the idea of wrestling hard for that situation than Bethlehem Catholic was, and it showed up on match day. So if the same level of buy-in is present for the district tournament this year, which I would expect it to be, that's one of the great sort of, you can't quantify that.
Right. Now, his guys always buy in, and last year, like I said in an earlier podcast, we were fortunate enough. Like Jake was preparing for the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, so we actually went over and worked out with them that week to kind of have some partners to work out with for Jake. And I remember going into practice and Jeff saying to me, like it frustrated. I don't even know what to do. Like, some of these kids are in spring sports, so we try to bring them back every other day and not be crazy about it, but we have to get their weights down and get them a little workout. And then he goes on and knocks off Becca in that first round match. It's like, oh wow, that's cool. And then next thing you know, you guys in the finals. So yeah, he has an uncanny way of getting his guys to buy in, and that's important in the team race. So.
And don't listen to him if he's down on things.
Yeah,
don't listen to him.
Yeah,
that's that was a theme early in this season too. Looking at your number 2, Gettysburg, unbeaten so far this season. They are 16-0. They're at the number 4 spot in the District 3 power ratings. This is a team, again, I mean, I told Chris Haynes this last year. They didn't really have any business being on the same mat as Central Dolphin. When you looked at the matchups on paper in the District 3 championship match last year, they won the District 3 title 2 years ago. So you're starting to see a trend emerge that, wrestlers are going to come, wrestlers are going to go, but the brand of competing in dual meet setups, this is a huge deal to Chris Haynes. It's a huge deal to Gettysburg. They're not looking beyond the team postseason to individuals. They're not, going through the motions in any way. They want this District 3 team title as bad as anybody, and they wrestle that way. And you look at what they've got at 215 and 285, Sam Rodriguez and Trevor Gallagher. That's a pretty tough 1-2 punch in some of these matchups. They're going to match up well. They've got guys who are 20 match winners in the middle. They've got Tyler Withers. They've got last names that you're used to seeing, like Pakaitis, Townsend, and Withers are back. So the machinery is still there for Gettysburg. And I know the one thing is they've wrestled 16 matches. They are outscoring opponents 960 to 197, an average dual meet of 60-12. So, they are game competitors, but they haven't really had to statistically in dual meets dig deep and have to gut out any wins yet this year. This will be a kind of a new feel as they go into the District 3 tournament.
And that is my only hesitation on Gettysburg at number 2 is, I mean, they're so far behind the 8 ball as far as, strength of schedule. And I mean, even exposing I just feel like they have a nice team and Chris does a nice job. I wish he would extend them a little more, in the team duels side of things and see some, teams, better teams. Now they do wrestle Chambersburg here this week, so that at least will get them into the Commonwealth a little bit and you'll get a look at them there. But they are tough, and I think like you said, that the buy-in there to as a group, as a unit, to do everything in their power as individuals to help their team win, like you said, nobody might be more bought in than them to do that. And Chris always has his guys prepared, and like I said, I want to see them in a big dual meet, and I know you've done it in the past, and you come through, but I want to see this team now, fight and scrap and claw against a good team in a hard fought dual meet. And I'm not saying they can't do that. I mean, heck, they could win a district title, who knows? But it'll be interesting here. But I have them at 2, and I mean, how's it? CD, Dallastown, Cumberland Valley. I have Carlisle, Spring Grove, Manheim Township. I mean, what are those matches going to be like when they wrestle those teams? Like, how's Gettysburg going to do against those teams? And I don't think it's going to be the normal outscoring of opponents that they've been getting all year. I think those are going to be some pretty good dual meets. So, you get 1 or 2 things that go outside of Gettysburg's way. And I mean, it could get interesting for them. So, but they're definitely my team that I have at number 2, and a team that, like you said, is becoming more consistent and becoming more of a staple here in the District 3 race.
Looking at number 1, and I would say the 1 spot looks like it's not going to be shaken much. There's a possibility for CD to jump up and grab the 2 if they have a good week. But Hempfield looks pretty well locked into the District 3 power ratings, the number 1 spot there. They're at the number 1 spot in your rankings as well. They're 9-0. Good early wins. They beat Spring Grove 51-24. Nobody's really done that besides them. They beat Chambersburg 39-28 before Chambersburg started having some things unravel a bit for them. This was early in the year when they were full strength. Haven't really been tested since then. They are scheduled to wrestle Manhattan Township on Wednesday, and then they've got, instead of duels, they've got the LL championships on Friday and Saturday.
No, Shane Mack is the head coach there, and I mean, he does a good job. Another good guy, and he has a good staff with him as well. This team, this group at Hempfield's a group that they've been talking about for years now. This group coming up through, and these guys are finally juniors and seniors now, and I feel like these guys are seasoned. They're balanced. They're spread out. They have enough star power. They kind of got everything going on. So that's why they're my number 1. And I feel like these other teams that we talked about can all battle Hempfield. I'm not saying that Hempfield's just clear-cut favorite. I just think right now, heading into it, they are the team that I feel has the most balance and has the most star power intertwined with that balance. So that's why they grabbed the number 1 spot for me. So
and I agree with that. I don't think there's a team in this race that has both components in spades. And Hempfield is the closest to having the best combination of bonus point scores and lineup depth and balance. So we'll see. The good news is, we are, by the time you're listening to this, we are 7 days or less from having to prognosticate about anything. We are going to get into the District 3 team championships. They start on Monday with AA. Tuesday starts the AAA tournament. I love the Thursday night, the semifinals down at Spring Grove. Everybody's fighting for their life to try to move on. Championship finals and consolation finals will be at Cumberland Valley High School because Mike Craig has decided, I think, over the past year, he wants to host everything, and that's good on him. They're going to be hosting. They hosted PIAA team championships there last year, hosted swim championships there last year. When somebody was needed to kind of step up and host whenever it's been crazy out there, Cumberland Valley's done it. Now they're hosting, and it'll be a good situation for the championship finals. Really looking forward to that in both AA and AAA. Again, that's on Saturday. So we got a big week of wrestling coming up, and Dave's top 5 in both AA and AAA. We'll see if it's confirmed or unraveled. What do you think, Dave?
I mean, it's going to be unraveled because it's been unraveled all year. So I don't. So no, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to fall, and you never know what's going to happen. But I think before it's all said and done, I think the teams that we've talked about today are going to be the teams that we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. So
there you go. Well, I think we should be back next Monday to really preview this thing. Once we get where everybody is and what the matchups exactly are, we'll come back and not just guess who the top 5 are. We will try to predict our way through this entire tournament and see how that unravels throughout the week. So there you go. That's Dave
get
Heckard.
The bracket there and then see the matchups. I mean, that's exciting. It's exciting stuff.
That'll be next week. So stay tuned here on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to this episode, and we will see you next time.